Welcome back to another episode of Caps Off. Today we got a special guest. Now, I don't know how we landed him.
We made it,
I guess. I don't know. But we officially have Sam Monson, PFF's lead NFL analyst, live from Indianapolis at the Combine with us to talk some draft stuff and some other absolute nonsense that I'm very excited to get into.
You know I'm fucking antsy because my dynasty team is hanging on.
This is big for us.
Well, right now, everything Sam says, I'm going to apply to my dynasty team going forward. So.
All right, well, welcome, Sam.
Thanks for having me, guys. Nonsense is my specialty, so we're going to do well.
I love it. Same with us.
We really are
we have a PhD in it.
We're amazing at nonsense.
But yeah, we're going to get into a couple player comps, some big names in the draft this year, talk about some offseason rumors, and some, jumps that we might expect from teams coming into next season, and just see where the conversation goes. But I'm looking forward to it. I know we're all looking forward to it.
So Sam, give us a little background right now on Indy. What's going on there? Obviously with the Combine.
Yeah, this is the start of the week here. So I'm on Radio Row or media, the kind of media room where we just have a giant hall right now with all these tables set up for all the media guys. Just this side, there's a curtain, and the far side of that is where the NFL coaches and GMs and those kinds of things are doing their press conferences right now. You'll see all kinds of those videos out in social media of everybody crowded around these podiums. And this is kind of the start of the week, is the press conference, couple of days where these guys talk for a little bit before any of the players kind of really arrive and get into all that kind of stuff, which comes later in the week.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Wait, before we get into it, Sam, we were talking off air. Where's your allegiance lie in terms of teams? We got to know where the bias is coming from before we go into it. Who's your NFL team?
Well, so the important thing is I'm not doing any of the grading right now. So what I'm about to say doesn't perjure the PFF grade in any way, shape, or form. I'm a Vikings fan. I lived for a year in Minnesota when I was a kid. My dad is a surgeon, and we moved around a lot. So from the age of 7 onwards, I've been a Vikings fan.
I'm sorry, man. That's tough.
Yeah,
that's got to be.
I've got a bunch of buddies.
That's the right response.
I've got a bunch of buddies who are Minnesota fans. Minnesota Vikings have definitely found a soft spot in my heart. I'm a Giants fan, so I was very happy to beat y'all in the playoffs this year. But Jack is.
You spent a week in Florida. You saying y'all now?
Rubbed off on me. That's very excited to beat you guys in the playoffs, but I do like Minnesota.
Let's get into it.
Should we get into the?
Let's get into
some NFL player comps that we got. Like we said, we got the Combine this week, so we're going to go through some college players. I'm going to give you a player. You're going to just tell me who you think their NFL player comp is and maybe what you expect from them in the league. We'll start at the top. Let's start with Bryce Young. Who's your
I like
NFL
this
player?
one. I'm stealing it because my buddy Nate Tice from The Athletic came up with this one. He's such a fascinating run of player comps because everybody comps a draft guy to a Hall of Famer, right? This is the next Reggie White. This is the next Randy Moss, whoever. Yeah. And Nate Tice always has these comps that are middle-of-the-road players, and everybody takes it as a giant insult. But realistically, the guy ends up being a middle-of-the-road NFL player. It's probably a pretty good draft pick. Yeah. So Nate Tice thinks that Bryce Young reminds him the most of Doug Flutie. Old Boston College Doug Flutie, who was probably the last guy in the NFL playing at that size. And, his numbers, Bryce Young's measurables are still to come this week. But I think realistically, we're talking about a guy that's 5'10", 180 pounds, which is not quite unprecedented small in the NFL, but it takes you back to Doug Flutie's time of size. But if you watch old Doug Flutie Boston College tape, that guy is running around like a magician. He's making incredible plays. He's got the talent to play. Teams just looked at him and said, no, that's not going to fly. You got to go to the CFL. You got to prove it somewhere else. And then eventually kind of worked his way back and always played pretty well in the NFL while given it a chance.
That's a good one. I mean, throwing out Doug Flutie like that is a big name. But now I'm kind of curious, if Bryce Young was 6'2", who would then be his player comp?
That's a great question.
If he was bigger, if the size was on his side.
6'2", 210.
Yeah, first of all, if he was 6'2", 210, 215, I think there would be no conversation about who was going number one. He would be the clear guy. He would be seen as a great quarterback prospect. He'd be right up there with the best we've seen come into the league for the past several seasons. His tape is that good. And if that was his size, I think we would be talking about this guy a lot like we talk about Patrick Mahomes.
Oh my
like,
God.
obviously, comping anybody to Patrick Mahomes it's unreasonable, right? It's unfair.
Yeah.
He's the best quarterback in the league right now. But stylistically, he does a lot of the same things. Kind of organized chaos, the ability to maneuver around the pocket and still find somewhere to go with the ball. He does have some stylistic similarities to Mahomes.
So the comparison, I'm trying to find who said it yesterday.
Someone said Pat.
It wasn't Mel Kiper. It was Todd McShay.
Todd McShay.
Well, yeah.
His comp was Patrick Mahomes for Bryce Young.
Well, Tom McShay's throwing out some nonsense right now. The Bryce Young over Justin Fields. He's talking about him being Patrick Mahomes. No one is Patrick Mahomes.
Well, if that's his comp is Patrick Mahomes, obviously you take him over Justin Fields, though.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I like Justin Fields, though, but
Size is not on his side. We might as well move on, right?
Oh, yeah,
might as well.
next
All
guy.
right, next guy. The next player comp we want from you is the C.J. Stroud.
Dak Prescott.
Yeah, and this one, I don't think people are going to like this one because, not everybody loves this guy. But C.J. Stroud reminds me a lot of Jared Goff.
I like Jared Goff.
Long, thin quarterback who's just good. Like, maybe he doesn't have great in his range of outcomes, but he's a good, capable, starting NFL quarterback. That's who he reminds me of.
Like, you build a team around him, good pieces, good weapons. Like, you could win a few playoff games.
What?
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
Jared Goff also.
Yeah, I
Jared
love
Goff
Jared
had a
Goff.
good year.
hey,
I was saying Jared Goff had a top 10 season last year for all quarterbacks, and they laughed in my face. I think he's great.
All right, great.
great's
Great is
ridiculous.
a strong
Relax on
word.
the great.
He's a great guy.
He's
a good guy.
I'm
He's a
sure
good
he's a
guy.
good guy.
So
we walked past him. at
Sam,
Super
let me
Bowl.
ask
Good
you
guy.
then. So we just rattled off probably the top two quarterbacks, and I know that's changing a lot, and it's probably going to change even more in the month going forward. But consensus right now, or maybe not consensus, but top two for the past few months have been Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. To you, which one is the better quarterback?
Oh, I think Bryce Young is way better. I think he's a much superior prospect. Like, the only concern with Bryce Young is his size and how much you should be scared of the fact that he's 5'10", 180 pounds. If you can get past that, I think his tape is by far and away the best of any quarterback in this draft. But that size thing is going to scare a lot of NFL teams.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, when you come to Radio Row or whatever and you see some of these old, former NFL quarterbacks walking around, it does start to sort of put into perspective how big most of those guys are, right? When you walk past Ryan Leaf or Carson Palmer, and these guys are 6'5", 250 pounds, they're huge. Like, these guys are massive human beings. And then you stand next to a Bryce Young, which I haven't done, but like, he's my size, right? He's 5'10", 180. Like, It's a different world. So
Short king,
there
good
are
word.
going to be teams that look at him and then look at like a Will Levis next to him and go, no, we just can't take that risk. Like, it might work, but I don't want to gamble.
Right.
But if you can get past it, if you're a team that goes, look, he's been playing in the SEC, he's been getting it done at this size, I don't care. He's shown that he can make that work. If you're okay with that, his tape is so much better than the rest of it.
Well, quickly, Sam. Alabama's had some great quarterbacks coming out, really out of Tuscaloosa in the last 5 years. Would you say Bryce Young's the best quarterback coming out of Alabama in those last 5 years, or would you kind of put him below a Jalen Hurts?
No, I think he's the best of the three. I think he's better than Tua, better than Mac Jones, and I think he was better than Jalen Hurts when he was at Alabama. I think he's the best prospect that Alabama has sent to the NFL in the last, several years.
And he played
That
with,
says a lot.
And we
That
talked
does
about
say a
this
lot.
yesterday, but he played with less talent than guys like Tua played with, even Jalen Hurts. So,
Wow.
Totally.
He did have Devonta Smith, I think so. But
Yeah.
so Matan, you have Anthony Richardson last, but let's go with them next. just to stay
Let's
on the
do that.
quarterbacks.
All right. Who's the NFL comp for Anthony Richardson?
Richardson is a wild one because I don't know that he has an NFL comp. I've seen Mike Renner, our draft guy, has compared him to Josh Allen, and you can kind of see why just in terms of giant physical size, the huge arm, the athleticism, like that makes some sense. But that, I think, kind of undersells what Richardson can do running the football.
Yeah.
I don't know that there is a comp. Like, the most crazy one I saw recently was somebody saying that he was like a combination of Cam Newton and Justin Fields, right?
Jesus
Supercharged
Christ.
Cam Newton speed, and that's Anthony Richardson. That feels like it's going a little far, but like that's the
That
kind of
is a
world
that's-
we're
bold
talking
take.
about.
I love
that's
it.
wild.
My favorite part about player comps is
Yeah.
you just throw out a wild name and you just hope that that's their ceiling, which I totally understand. That's how it works. But like Anthony Richardson is far more of a project than Cam Newton ever was. Would you say?
He also, I mean, he wasn't as good in college as Cam Newton was. Like, that's
Newton
part
was.
of this. Is Cam Newton was this super freak in college who literally dragged a team to a national title that wouldn't have been anywhere near that without him. Anthony Richardson was good, but he didn't do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, him and Will Levis are both two players I feel like that have all these physical tools and gifts, and, you know, people are looking at that, and that's the reason why they're such a highly touted prospect. But, like, what does a lack of college performance with those two guys, like, how much do you weigh that in the draft process? Because for me, I think that says a lot. If you can't carry your team, like you said, like a Cam Newton did, how can you trust these guys to carry your team when you have a high draft pick? Your team's probably not as good around you, like, to carry that team forward.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they're slightly different for those two quarterbacks. I think there's a bigger criticism for Richardson in those terms, where you can say, all right, you were on Florida. They had quite a lot of talent. You didn't manage to take them anywhere special. When you look at Levis, like, he had nothing around him this year. His supporting cast was by far the worst of any of these guys. There were so many plays where he would put the ball in the air, and his receivers would just, like, watch it sail into the hands of a defensive back. And you're like, come on, you know, give the guy some help here. He's trying to do all this on his own against a Georgia defense. It's just destroying everything. And you guys are not even trying to help him out. Like, Levis, I think, really didn't have the help around him. And, you know, he's in the SEC as well. Like, he's got this staffed supporting system with receivers and offensive line. He's going up against the best teams in the nation in the SEC. He's the guy, I think, that has the most valid excuse of, like, there was a realistic ceiling here, and he probably got close to it.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right, next player. Let's do a wide receiver. Our audience loves wide receivers. So
I love wide receivers.
Who's the player comp to Jackson Smith-Njigba?
This is one I really can't come up with a good one. I found him a really strange player to evaluate. His movement style is kind of weird. His route running is strange. He, like, rolls into these breaks and then accelerates really, really quickly. I couldn't come up with a good stylistic comp for him. But I do think that he might be more than just this slot receiver, which he'll be talked about. He spent 90% of his snaps in the slot in college. He was the reason that Garrett Wilson got moved outside from being in the slot in that Ohio State offense. But I think he has the skill set to move outside at the next level. His releases off the line are really clean. He's got good footwork. He's got enough speed. You see plays where he stacks a DB and doesn't get closed down. So I haven't come up with a good name for him, but I think he's a fascinating player and maybe capable of being more in the NFL than he was in college.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that with Olave and Garrett Wilson, Smith-Njigba had the best year out of those three 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, and it's not.
Go ahead.
Like, it's a good point. It's definitely notable, but it's not quite as clean as that because he had that slot role, and it's sort of, you know, where the defense just opens up the space, and he got a ton of the production. But you're right. It's a notable point. It's also worth noting that, like, both Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave have talked him up as the best guy of the group. You know, they are not like now when obviously they would, you know, it's draft time. Why wouldn't they say good things about their teammate? But, like, 2021 rather, those guys were talking him up before he'd even broken out, before he'd had that big role as, like, this guy's incredible. He does everything well. Like, that's the reason that Garrett Wilson is moving outside, so we can get Smith-Njigba doing what he can do. So it's definitely, there's a lot of buzz around this guy, despite, you know, the concerns that a lot of people have.
Sam, you just talked about Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Obviously, they had Jackson Smith-Njigba, but who would you say is wide receiver you then in college? Because you have Alabama putting talent out there. They've been doing it for years. You have LSU. You have Ole Miss putting out guys now. Who would you say is wide receiver you?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, there have been some insane runs of talent at wide receiver at a bunch of these different colleges. Just because they're still going. I'm kind of giving it to Ohio State right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. next year might be the best of all of them. We've had 3 of these guys that we expect to go in the first round in the last couple of years, and Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best of the entire group and end up going in the top 5 and looking like a superstar. Yeah. So their production line's still going. I'm going with them.
That's a good take.
I like that.
I like that.
Nice. All right, let's move to a running back. Who is the NFL player comp for Bijan Robinson?
So he reminded me of Christian McCaffrey. And the thing is, McCaffrey was a good athlete, with the exception of his three cone, which is like off the charts good, like insane. Everything else was pretty good, like a decent 40, a decent broad jump, a decent vertical, but it wasn't great. Bijan reminds me of like, okay, let's take Christian McCaffrey and make him a really good athlete. Now what do you get? That, to me, is Bijan. That's why I think you're talking about like a generational running back prospect, a guy that might be the best running back PFF has seen come into the draft, which we started grading college in 2014. So I think he's probably the best running back we've ever seen hit the NFL over that period. And we might be going back as far as like Adrian Peterson in 2007.
Wait.
So how much better is he? Because every few years there's a guy like this. There's a running back like this that everyone's talking about.
Like
Saquon was that. Zeke was that before that.
McCaffrey.
How much better is he than a Zeke coming out of Ohio State or a Saquon coming out of Penn State?
I think Zeke is up there, but I think he is a more complete player than Saquon was coming out. Saquon, everybody loved his insane ability, his agility, his tackle break-in. But there were concerns about, like, he wants to bounce everything outside. Right? It was kind of like throwbacks to Reggie Bush. Does that work in the NFL? Like, is he going to give up too much yardage trying to make a big home run hit on the outside? And I think people were fairly concerned about that as how that would go. There's no concerns about how Bijan Robinson plays. Like, he's good at everything. He's a great receiver. He always hits the right hole. He maximizes the yardage that's there. When he does hit the hole, he's just such a polished and complete player. And I think he has a little bit more athleticism to his game than Zeke, which is why what would separate him as the top of that prospect tree.
So you're saying Bijan, hold on.
The next Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, so
we got the soundbite. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So you're saying pretty much Bijan Robinson is arguably the best running back prospect PFF has seen since 2014?
When they started.
When you guys started grading running backs?
I think he is the best running back prospect we've seen come into the draft since 2014. He might be the best prospect to come along since Adrian Peterson.
That's insane.
God.
That makes me so excited.
And you know where Adrian Peterson is from, right? Texas, man.
Well, which then kind of concerns me over like the next question that I guess I would have is, I mean, do the Philadelphia Eagles draft Bijan Robinson at 10 with Miles Sanders being a free agent?
Yeah, it's such a fascinating conversation, right? Because PFF, analytics generally, we've been kind of at the forefront of this. Don't commit big resources to running backs.
Right.
Don't pay them the second contract in free agency. Don't draft them at the top of the draft. Like the quote unquote running backs don't matter. Like that was always silly. That was always taking it too far. But there is a conversation of like how much is too much resources to put towards a running back. I think drafting one in the first round is fine. When you look at the contracts that those guys get for the rookie deals, you can go quite high up in the draft before it starts to become an expensive deal. And I think you're talking about that kind of borderline top 10 range. I think that's fine from a contract standpoint, but then you get into what's the opportunity cost, right? If we take this guy at 10, what did we leave on the table?
Right.
And for Philadelphia, they're obviously in a good spot roster-wise. They just got to the Super Bowl. But they are losing some pieces. They could stand to add a body on the defensive line, replace Javon Hargrave if they don't bring him back. They're going to need a cornerback probably if they let James Bradbury hit free agency. These are players where they could probably take the top guy on the board at what is a more valuable, more impactful position than running back. So if you're just looking at it in value terms of if he becomes great and we're paying him this contract, is it worth it? Sure. But I think you have to look at what you would be leaving on the table. And for Philadelphia, I would say it's probably not worth going in that direction if you have a more valuable position still on the board.
Well, I feel like what makes the most sense for the Eagles at that point, because they need a running back, and you're saying he's arguably, if not the best prospect that you guys have seen since AP, would be to package 10 really and to be able to move back, because now that you have 10 and 30 or 31 or whatever it might be, because you have the Saints pick, essentially you have a lot of flexibility. So Bijan is very much in the range of opportunity for the Eagles, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I mean, if they were able to move back, 5 draft spots, trade with somebody, move back 5 spots and have, that first round pick and maybe something extra as well, be able to, or, free agency can change a lot, right? There's going to be players available in free agency, and maybe some of these holes that are holes right now are not going to be glaring weaknesses on the roster by the time they roll into the draft. Right. That changes the story as well. So I think they're definitely in a position where they're going to have some options, and I'd say he's a live option for them. but I probably wouldn't draft him at 10, given what else they have in need right now.
What's the furthest you think he makes it to in the draft? Like, what's the
most he can fall.
Yeah, how far will he fall if he falls?
Who, Bijan?
Yeah. What's the farthest he'll fall?
I think he's definitely going in the first round. I think the furthest he's going to fall is probably those mid-20s picks. There's a few teams, Baltimore, Dallas, that pick in that kind of range that I doubt are going to let him get
I've
past
told y'all
him.
this.
We got a Cowboys fan, so
Felipe is a huge Cowboys fan, so
Look, it would make sense from Texas to Dallas. It's all good. It's all
the
good.
stars are aligning.
Is he
for
from
Bijan.
Is he from Texas?
Nah, he's from Arizona, I believe.
So then it doesn't add up.
Jeez,
Doesn't.
that's tough.
Or New Mexico, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Something like that.
Sam, we know you're very in tune with things going on in the off season and things that just moves that might be made. So I'm curious, what is the most ridiculous off season rumor that you've heard this year? Whether it's on Twitter, whether it's just on TV, anywhere, people
about.
saying it to you, whatever it might be.
And just to clarify, I saw we were looking on Twitter and we saw what Steffi tweeted, and you were talking about Geno Smith from last year. That was the most ridiculous offseason rumor. So kind of curious, what's the most ridiculous offseason rumor for this year that could actually come true?
Oh,
That's the funny thing is, like, no matter what you think it is, what actually happens is probably going to end up being more ridiculous. Like the idea that Geno Smith would be a top 10 quarterback last year at this time a year ago would have seemed completely ridiculous. Like we took bets on our podcast with listeners of like, you guys, we've been saying the same thing all offseason, right? Nothing's changing. We're sort of saying our narratives. You guys send us in a message. If you think we're full of it, let's put a bet on. We'll give you a free year of PFF Plus if we're wrong. And we had a couple of guys say, the Seahawks, Geno Smith's going to be good. We're like, that's ridiculous. Absolutely. Take that bet. And that was the thing that made us look like dumber than anything else this year. So whatever you think it is, reality is going to be more insane. But I think this idea of, Anthony Richardson going number 1 overall, which is getting more and more popular now, like that's kind of crazy to me.
That's
I,
nuts.
in a way, I get it because of the tools and, the fact that there are going to be teams that are scared of Bryce Young. But if you put Bryce Young's tape and then Anthony Richardson's tape back to back, and like one of these guys is going number 1 overall, which one is it? There's no way you could come up with Anthony Richardson.
Not a chance.
Wow.
I've never understood the number 1 overall hype between him.
Well,
and
because here's the thing, right? It's like you said, the tools,
You're an Anthony Richardson guy, aren't you?
I like it, but I understand obviously why number 1 is far out there. But it's always if you can put the tools, the skill set together, this is generational. And Lamar Jackson was a project. And the Ravens got what they could out of him really, really quick.
He was a project who won the Heisman, though.
Yes. No, it's different levels. But he was still a project that went, what was he, late 20s or 32 even overall to the Ravens?
He was late in the draft, yeah.
So Anthony Richardson now is talking, we weren't even talking about him during the season as a first-round pick, and then it starts moving up. Now, first overall, that's in the conversation. I don't think Lamar was ever in the first overall conversation. So it's interesting. I just think it's an interesting take.
No, and yeah, like in the same draft, Josh Allen is a good comp as well. Like when Josh Allen was coming out, we called him an IKEA quarterback, right? Like all the pieces are in the box, but somebody needs to figure out how to put it all together and create like what became of Josh Allen. And it might happen, but like there's no instruction manual for that. You're gonna have to figure out how it works. But again, like he didn't go number 1 overall, right? He went number 7.
Yeah.
So it's a big leap to now maybe the success of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and all these other guys that had questions about their game, like maybe that makes NFL teams now more willing to roll that dice and take that gamble. But you're right, it's a different conversation, I think, when you're talking about number 1 overall.
Well, I think if you're the Houston Texans, the conversation about needing a quarterback after Deshaun left shouldn't necessarily be about Anthony Richardson. It needs to be about Bryce Young, because at that point you need to look at the tape versus the actual prospect. I think Anthony Richardson it may possess everything, but correct me if I'm wrong, has really 1 year under his belt in terms of like solid tape, whereas Bryce Young's been doing this for a couple years now. So it worries me if you're the Houston Texans, not that I actually care about the Texans, but if you go out and draft Anthony Richardson number 1 overall after you just drafted Derek Stingley over a Sauce Gardner, this is how bad organizations stay bad organizations.
I think it's a tough like decision for all these teams at the top of the draft that need a quarterback, because there's a lot to like about every one of these guys this year, in the top 4 quarterbacks, but there's also something to be scared about for each one of them. You know, Bryce Young, you've got basically unprecedented size. CJ Stroud, you've got the fact that he's been bad under pressure and, you know, not necessarily great at working through progressions in that offense in every game outside of the Georgia game. The Georgia game is incredible, but it's basically one game. So that's something to be scared about for him. Levis, obviously, you've got bad season. Didn't look good this year, but lousy supporting cast. And then Richardson, just the inconsistencies across the board. So, like, there's something to scare you about every one of these teams. But if you're the Texans or the Colts or one of these other teams looking for a quarterback at the top of the draft, you got to make that call. You got to figure out what's the least scary guy or who's the guy we feel most confident about fixing their flaws and draft him.
Yeah, I'm curious what teams you think are the perfect fit for Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson. Like, best case scenario for each of those guys and for those teams, what's the best fit for each of them?
So I think Bryce Young to the Texans makes the most sense. Also, the Texans' new offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, he's a former PFF guy, so we have to bank on his ability to get the most out of Bryce Young. So I think that makes sense. Levis, I think going to the Colts makes a lot of sense. When you look at the quarterbacks that Chris Ballard has brought into that team since he got there, they're all like Will Levis size and shape. They're like 6'3", 6'4", 225 pounds. They all look the same. So I think that's a natural fit. The Raiders, I could see going with CJ Stroud and bringing in a guy that has the accuracy, can work through that Josh McDaniels offense. And then everybody's sending Anthony Richardson to Carolina to be the team. I actually, though, the team, I want one pick ahead. I want to send him to Atlanta and put him in that Arthur Smith offense and let that absolutely cook. We saw what Marcus Mariota was able to do last year, and Mariota was bad as a passer. Richardson in that offense could be really fun.
That would be fun. With those weapons there, too. Oh
yeah, that'd be insane. I know you have to leave in a second, so we're going to have this be the last one and appreciate your time, but what's the one team that you think is going to make the jump this coming season, similar to that of the Bengals 2 years ago, the Jags this year, the Eagles this year? Like, what's that one team coming into next season that you're like, that team's going to make the playoffs and make some noise?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this since you guys sent over the questions. I think Jacksonville is a team that could take another one. You know, obviously they took a big leap last year with Trevor Lawrence getting better. If they have a good offseason, like, they could contend this year, not just make the playoffs, not just be one and done. Like, they could legitimately make some noise. Trevor Lawrence is that good. They've got a lot of young players on that roster. They could move in the right direction really, really quickly. And then obviously, I think if the Jets get a quarterback, they're immediately in the playoffs. They could easily knock over Buffalo in that division and become like a true contender. Like, if they end up snagging Aaron Rodgers, whoo.
Yeah.
I mean, you forgot about Miami, but we'll ignore that.
He's a Dolphins fan. It's fine. It's fine.
But, Sam, this has been awesome. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, man.
This has been amazing, and I know you had you fit it into your schedule, and you're going to be at the Combine that entire week, so this has been amazing, and thanks so much again for everything.
You want to plug your socials for us, for the fans to check you out wherever?
Oh, man, I'm at PFF_Sam on Twitter, and then just the PFF NFL podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
That's awesome.
Love it, man. We appreciate your time. That was great analysis.
Be sure to follow Sam.
I might have to consult with you on some dynasty fantasy football moves in the future. So we'll see.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Sam.
guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Sam. Thanks. All right, well,
Respect. I think so.
Sam,
Hey,
legend.
Sam was a legend. He had a
Thanks
run.
to Sam for coming on. That was unreal.
He had a run, and Felipe had a pee.
What do you think? Felipe had to pee. Felipe took a quick pee break.
Dude,
you won't
it
even
felt
notice
so
on the
good.
edit.
Why you got to expose that, man?
What
Sorry.
you mean?
You got to
It's
expose his
nothing-
bladder?
It's okay. I'm not embarrassed by it.
You got to be proud, man.
What do you think? What's something that Sam just said that kind of struck you the most?
Bijan Robinson's the best prospect PFF's ever seen since Adrian Peterson. Are you crazy?
That's
Yeah,
insane.
I
That's,
think
that's not that hot, but it's hot.
Bro,
Like,
I thought when he was like, oh, yeah, Anthony Richardson could be a mix of Cam Newton and Justin Fields, I was like, that's fucking
I'm
nuts.
drafting him first overall if that's the case, because that is insane.
If that's the case, but first of all,
He doesn't
Justin
have
Fields
tape.
made the college football national championship. Cam Newton won a BCS national championship. Anthony Richardson played on mid-ass Florida teams with good talent. They didn't do shit. I don't understand the Anthony Richardson hype whatsoever.
I don't either at all.
Yeah, he's big and fast, fucking cool.
He had a few good games.
That's the point. Because he's big and fast. Bro, it's fucking candy, man. It's a medium rare steak
He's
right
big
there.
and fast.
Staring at you.
He's big and fast with a big arm, but he throws a million picks. He's not good.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Josh Allen threw a million
I knew
picks.
this was going to come up because he brought up Josh Allen. He said an IKEA. It's like Josh Allen was an IKEA quarterback.
Such a good take, by the way.
Which great take. Because
Anthony Richardson is an IKEA quarterback.
Pieces together yourself.
And now he's a
I
West
actually
Elm
disagree though
quarterback.
because Josh Allen's biggest issue was accuracy and the INTs, yes, but Anthony Richardson's far more of a project than Josh Allen was. Josh Allen was still fucking hooping.
Wait, why
you look at Josh Allen's college
had
tape.
4 games of like
Because he played at Florida, playing against good competition. Josh Allen was at Wyoming.
Why are you
does that have to do with
Anthony
anything?
Richardson guy?
Why are you
I'm
so
not.
high on
Dude,
Anthony Richardson? What I'm trying
I'm
to
not.
say,
I think it's a project too, but Josh Allen was
telling
just as much as a
you're
project.
telling me that Anthony Richardson deserves to potentially go number 1 overall because he had 4 games against better talent versus Josh Allen, who at Wyoming was still being able to hoop because he was against lesser talent?
No. Well, the comparison with Josh Allen, I hate. And to say Josh Allen was less of a project, I disagree. I think they were both projects. I do think Bryce Young is you're safer picking Bryce Young first overall. You're safer picking C.J. Stroud. But I'm just saying that if guys like Josh Allen have panned out in the past, if guys like Patrick Mahomes have panned out in the past. Patrick Mahomes was a project too. He came from an air raid quarterback system in college those guys traditionally don't work in the NFL.
Though. He was really good in college.
Really good. Now,
didn't he throw for like 6,000 yards?
Bro, he broke a record, I think, for Big 12 passing yards.
Yeah. No. Patrick Mahomes was ridiculous.
Patrick Mahomes is very good.
We're throwing around the word project.
But Anthony Richardson was not good in college.
Doesn't work in the NFL. Anthony Richardson wasn't good
There's a difference.
He showed flashes. But the comparison is with Josh Allen.
So did Drew Lock.
The comparison is with Josh Allen.
True.
Drew Lock does not compare to Anthony Richardson. What we're talking about is Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson right now, and nobody else. And all I'm saying is that Josh Allen may have had a better college career, but was playing much worse talent.
Tom Brady was a project.
No, he wasn't.
Why not?
Because he was a prototypical quarterback who was drafted to the Patriots. That's not a project.
My point to that, though, is to say you're put into the right system with good coaching and good pieces, and you're an NFL-level talent player, you might succeed. There's a high chance that you're going to be successful.
Yes, but also a first overall pick is not going to go to a team like that.
Size, and do we say he's not accurate? He's not accurate.
He's not very accurate.
Whatever.
Horribly
Size and
accurate.
athleticism and quarterback ability, NFL level play at quarterback ability. Like if you're coached right and just you fit into the system well, like you could succeed. I think that's proven across the board all over the NFL for years.
But I'm saying, what are the odds?
Doesn't matter if you were an incredible, if you were the top 10 quarterback in college or not.
No, not at all. But how often has a player like that hit in the NFL? How often do you see these guys that are projects that hit? Zach Wilson was a project. That was a horribly run project. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of guys I think that don't work out like that. I don't understand why you'd spend your top draft capital when you need a guy. You pick a safe guy that Bryce Young is going to be fucking good.
Here's why I do not understand Anthony Richardson at number 1. I was just looking up his stats. He's not even in the top 100 of completion percentage out of all college quarterbacks from this year.
All I'm saying,
he's 65th in passing yards. And a few good games of Heisman-like material where he did, skip to my Lou 1, 2, 3, whatever he did, was impressive. But
I got it. He did flashy shit.
He did flashy shit. Yeah, flashy shit. I got it. Well, yeah, he did flashy shit. But a few games like that of him doing those things does not warrant the number 1 overall pick. That's all I'm saying.
I totally agree.
Josh Allen is different because he.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is because he could have gone inside the top 10, the top 12. Because besides,
he wasn't expected to, but he did.
I mean, he was expected to be a first-round pick no matter what. Anthony Richardson, there's a reason he was plus 10,000 odds to potentially
be a second or third round pick.
Now he's plus 750. Daniel Jones was a 4th-round pick until he got picked top 10 by the
Giants. And who else was in that draft with Daniel Jones?
Well, now you're bringing up other.
But I'm just saying, there's 3 other quarterbacks in there. To say that Anthony Richardson goes number 1 overall strictly because he's 6'4", 220 is why bad franchises stay bad franchises.
I understand taking him over like a Will Levis though, because Will Levis is pretty raw as well, but Anthony Richardson's raw and has crazy ceiling.
Yeah.
But saying that there is a chance that any team that needs to draft a quarterback rebuild is going to take Anthony Richardson and take a flyer like that over a Bryce Young or CJ Stroud.
You need
no
to have
fucking sense.
Yeah, it can't be any team though.
Correct.
You need to have the right coach, the right pieces already there that exist.
Yeah, what I wouldn't.
The Texans can't just draft him. You know
No,
what I mean?
see,
Like,
the
they're
thing
not-
is,
they're
like,
a
with
terrible
Anthony
organization.
Richardson, I wouldn't mind if he he gets drafted to a team like, let's say the Jets get a Derek Carr for like a couple years, and that doesn't pan out. You have Anthony Richardson sit behind a Derek Carr, someone that's played for a while, and then comes in and plays well. He learns the offense. I think throwing a guy that's so raw like Anthony Richardson right out to the Wolves immediately is not a good
but
idea.
but you don't have to
It
do
worked for
that.
Josh Allen. It worked for Josh Allen, but it has not worked for
didn't.
almost any other project quarterback.
Really,
It
though.
really didn't.
It
Josh
took
Allen
some-
had a
Josh Allen's rookie year was horrible.
Yeah, it took 3 years
and so
for
was
Josh
Peyton
Allen.
Manning's. But
I agree with you, but I don't
people always
think
bring that up,
we don't
but-
have the luxury anymore because we all want to compare quarterbacks to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and these guys that took years, and then we see Joe Burrow go off, we see Justin Herbert go off
Yeah, but those
early
guys were
on.
set prospects.
But we were talking about this yesterday. Like theoretically, yes, but at the same time, not necessarily. Like quarterbacks still need time to develop. So Anthony Richardson's going to go in the top 12 to a team like the Colts, a Raiders, a Texans potentially, like a Panthers, and he's not going to have the time to sit back and wait.
Yeah.
And frankly, in today's NFL, most teams will not want to wait 3 years. They should, but they won't.
They have so much more of like, if we're spending this high draft capital, we need to start them immediately. Like, we don't have time for them to sit and whatnot. Even though I think sitting them sometimes is probably the best option if you can get like one of those
There's
filler
pros and cons.
quarterbacks. You know, like I'm talking about like a Jimmy G, be like a filler couple year quarterback when you draft a guy like that.
Jimmy G's prime filler.
I agree with you. I mean, we can't compare everybody to Josh Allen because Josh
not
Allen
fair to Josh.
Allen was a project that worked out, but very few work out. So just say, oh, he's going to be Josh. Like, you can't do that. But we have to understand that Josh Allen was a project, and he ended up working out. First couple years, not great. He ended up fixing his turnovers, got Stephon Diggs, had Brian Dable, one of the best quarterback gurus in the league, and then built up to become one of the best quarterbacks in the league today. To say Anthony Richardson is going to be Josh Allen is a tall order. I'm just saying from that point where he was in college coming into the league, it's a similar comparison.
No, because he Anthony
had more
Richardson was
success in
horrible in college. Like, he was not good.
I'm actually going to apologize. I just looked up Josh Allen's last year in college.
It was terrible. He had like 50.
It was worse than
56.
Anthony Richardson.
Yes.
Really? Wow.
From not only from a yards perspective, he had
Completion
1,800
percentage too,
yards.
probably.
Completion percentage was a little bit better, 3 percentage points better.
Okay.
But he was more accurate, obviously. But I don't know, like
He's playing Wyoming.
16 touchdowns, 6 INTs. So yes, I guess Josh Allen was picked based off of his intangibles.
He was.
Here's the only
6'4",
intangibles.
240.
I'm gonna end the number one overall conversation right here. If Mizzou was cooking you in college, you should not be taking number one overall.
No,
that's my alma
that's-
mater. We're not very good,
You're
and we
great.
cooked Anthony Richardson the
That's a good
last few
point.
years.
You're
That's
great.
all I'm
No,
saying.
you got to go with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
got to go with Bryce Young.
Well, then
Anthony Richardson's just a Madden player. That
Oh my God, he's gonna be so fun
That
in
if you
Madden.
can get the right offensive coordinator with them and some good pieces around him, a good offensive line, it's scary. bro.
Imagine
That's all
him
I'm
in
saying.
San Francisco. It won't happen. But
can we talk about Bijan again, though?
Yeah,
can we?
because he's
Do
from
we?
Texas.
Shall we?
Well, went to Texas.
The
Not
Philadelphia
from Texas,
Eagles
went to Texas. Yeah, it would make them dangerous.
Should draft Bijan Robinson.
I don't necessarily agree.
Well, they
you don't need him.
You
I
don't need him.
agree.
You
He's a
don't
nice
need him.
luxury.
Yeah, but you don't need him. But Miles Sanders is a free-
I think you need better inside linebackers. You're going to need to replace the interior defensive line. Like you said, if Bradbury leaves a corner,
but think about how
I think
filthy-
interior linebacker is like one of the top things they need right now.
Think about how filthy Bijan would be on a rookie contract in Philadelphia.
Yeah, but like we saw Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell play really well.
Yeah, I think that's
like
the
with
point.
them. You don't
But it's
need a
fun.
Bijan. It's fun.
It's fun.
But I don't think there's any point to drafting
To
him if you're
quote
the
the late
Eagles.
great Jack Perotti, you don't need
Late.
it. Yeah, late.
Late great?
Because this was last week.
Late,
great.
late would mean I am dead.
Dead.
Does
Yeah,
that? That's what it
Yep,
means.
that's
So
what late means.
Saying late great means they're dead.
Early?
The early great.
To quote the early
Just
Jack,
to quote Jack Perotti.
to quote the great Jack Perotti,
How's that?
you don't
That's
need
your line,
it.
bro.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
You don't need it, but if you get
He's
it,
back.
holy fuck.
I probably have said that. That sounds
you said
like
that last week.
last week.
Yeah.
Well, no, my biggest
Couple
takeaway
weeks
to
ago.
piggyback off of Jack is what Sam said is the opportunity cost. That's what you're missing out on. Sure, you can if you get some pieces in free agency and you fill up some holes that you have now, then you don't have to address those in the draft. Adding a video game piece like Bijan Robinson would be crazy, but it still comes with opportunity cost. Another position that could be even more valuable to you because at running back you can plug and play. And you don't necessarily need that. Now, it gives you a piece that's crazy. It reminds me of the Cowboys when they should have gone with Jalen Ramsey in 2016. They went with Ezekiel Elliott because of the flash, and they thought if we have the ball more on offense, it takes off the defensive pressure. And that kind of worked. Played with a horrible defense, and obviously it didn't work out to a Super Bowl potential. The Eagles are Super Bowl potential. They just made the Super Bowl. So does Bijan take you over the hump? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think Bijan makes that much of a difference, to be completely honest. I really don't.
It gives you one more playmaker.
He's fucking awesome, but you don't need.
Playmaker.
You don't need him.
just-
No. You
don't
don't.
need
You
him.
obviously don't need him. You want him. You want him really
yeah.
bad. But I think that
I love
agree
her to
with
back
you.
up Christian
Adding
McCaffrey,
a
but-
superstar running back doesn't necessarily elevate your team that much.
It doesn't
further.
matter.
Like unless
And
you're
fantasy.
It depends because if you're
Yeah.
missing that, but I think Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell can be a really, really good duo.
Well-
Dude, did you see them in the playoffs? They looked
okay,
fucking awesome.
but we're talking. What are you? We're going to re-sign Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell and run it
Yeah,
back
for
for the Super
$1
Bowl.
Why not?
million?
It could work.
For like $1 million,
And then you can
you're able to
upgrade
pay
on
everybody
pieces
else?
that hurt you on the playoffs.
And
Isaiah
you have
Pacheco
Jalen
ran
Hurts,
all
who's
over
basically a
their
running back.
interior linebackers in the Super Bowl. Their run defense was one of the worst in football this year. I think you upgrade that. That's what gets you over the hump. Not
have a-
getting a Bijan Robinson.
You have a top 2 running quarterback. also.
Exactly. You don't need
like-
if you have Jalen Hurts with literally any athletic, capable running back, you're gonna have a good runoff. And with that offensive line, you don't need Bijan.
It's what we see in Baltimore. Any running back succeeds with Lamar Jackson.
Well,
Anybody.
That's true.
J.K. Dobbins goes down and Kenyon Drake comes in, who Kenyon Drake is fucking ass and hasn't done anything in years.
Yeah.
Dude.
And then he just
Gus
goes down.
Edwards.
Gus Edwards, they run for 100 yards a game like it's nothing because of that system.
System.
like,
But
yeah,
Bijan is a
but-
beautiful piece. It's so fun.
Well,
I think-
I want to, as much as I
wanna
don't like
see
the Cowboys,
Felipe
I want to
on
see him go to the Cowboys. He'd be a great addition for y'all.
But I think
Yeah, but
what's the
again,
Cowboys
opportunity
pick?
cost, it might be better to
do the
go
Cowboys
at
have an extra
receiver.
first this year or no?
No, we have one, and we probably what we're going to value more than running back is because we got burnt by running back, obviously with
Wide
Zeke in
receivers.
particular,
Yeah.
is receiver.
I think you guys
and-
prioritize maybe getting Jalen Ramsey.
Well, DB. So then, if we get Jalen Ramsey, then all of a sudden we're probably locking in receiver in the first
Diggs
round.
and Ramsey.
But yeah, receiver and corner, and then we have some
you
needs
think
at
it
like
goes
linebacker, offensive line.
Receiver priority 1 for the Cowboys, then corner, and then offensive line.
Probably, but the thing about the receiver class, which we didn't get to talk to Sam about this, is everybody's all over the place. Like, Zay Flowers is the number 2 receiver for some people, the number 15 receiver for some people. So it's after a couple guys,
After
like the
Johnson
top 3.
and Smith and Jigba, it's like
Yeah, and even Jordan Addison, maybe like those are the top 3. After that, like the guys all over the place. So I think the Cowboys, if they really wanted to, if they got Jalen Ramsey, let's say, could go at Bijan in the first round, and then in the second round go get a Josh Downs or a Zay Flowers or one of these guys that could be really good, but we're not so sure about yet.
Well, I just think going back, the reason I keep bringing up the Eagles is I don't think they pick them at 10, but they have so much flexibility with that 10th pick because that's 2 first-round picks.
Right.
So you could trade back from 10 and go to 17.
That's scary.
And still get them, but the contract's way better than if you picked them at 10, which is what Sam was
Yeah.
alluding to. So I just think, like, if you're
Yeah.
the Eagles and you could pick up an extra first to move back to 17, now you have 3 first-round picks. That's a real
I hope-
possibility.
I hope that happens.
But that's my point.
Well,
is
well,
you
I hope
can
they
do that.
trade back and do that because, like, oh yeah, dude, fuck yeah, like we got the extra first round pick. Now we're gonna get a better salary with Bijan. And if they move back to 17, I hope he goes 16. Fuck the Eagles.
Cowboys.
Remember when the Eagles
we have like
traded
20.
I mean, that'd be
fucking
good.
Giants?
Yeah. So look, I just think Bijan. I mean, look, I also want Bijan to go to the Eagles because I'm willing to take that gamble in fantasy and do that, like pull off the
I
Brees Hall.
fucking do not want that. Hell no.
What?
I'm a 49ers fan. We're going to compete for the chip with them.
I'm talking about
next year.
fantasy though. You don't want Bijan Robinson
I
to go to the
don't
Eagles
want him
for
to go
fantasy
to-
purposes?
I also
Fuck
don't
no.
think if Bijan going to Philly wouldn't
My
be
team is way
the best
bigger than my fantasy
outcome.
team.
Thank you.
Why
Great.
the fuck do you care about your fantasy more than Dolph? Like,
You're a bad fantasy player.
Sorry, let's
You mean a bad team fan?
bro, if you think
Yes.
that's
Did-
crazy,
in
for
the
me,
last-
Also a terrible
in
fantasy
the last
player.
I hope
3
Bijan
minutes
goes to the AFC.
In the last 3 minutes, did I ever say I care about my fantasy team more than the Dolphins? I didn't
You
even bring
said
up the
you were
Dolphins.
just criticizing me for saying I don't want him to go to the Eagles because I'm a Niners fan and I don't want the
And I'm-
Niners to compete with that.
And I'm saying you could care from a fantasy perspective.
No, I don't want
No,
to
but
care.
he's
Like,
saying his priority is I don't give a shit
That's
about fantasy.
fine. So what about the second priority?
Also,
Do you,
I don't
like-
give a fuck about fantasy. I want the Niners to win a fucking Super
Also,
Bowl.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, great.
That doesn't matter
Do
to
you
me
care
at all.
about fantasy football?
Yes, I do, and I'll tell you this: because I care about fantasy football, Bijan to the Eagles would be one of the worst places for him. Would be
Why?
because
They
of,
rush it with Jalen Hurts a lot.
yes, because of that, it would be taking so many opportunities from him.
See,
You could go to probably 30 other teams in the league would be a better place for.
I don't agree with
for,
that.
It's absolutely
For
true.
fantasy.
I don't
Look
agree
at
with
any.
that.
Look at
because
Look
how many of those teams are going to have a good offensive line
at
to
what
actually
Justin
run,
Fields took
run
away from
behind?
Montgomery and Khalil Herbert.
And look what Texas just had at the offensive line to be able to run behind them.
It's the
Like,
same thing.
You still need an offensive line.
The Texans. What? What'd you say about the
Texas.
Texans?
Bijan Robinson at Texas also ran behind a good
I
offensive
heard
line.
the Texans also, but he
What
said
does that have to do with the mobile quarterback?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need a good offensive line in the NFL to still have success, no matter what. Bijan Robinson
do.
behind a good offensive line will have more success than the 30 other teams. Because they're one of the best offensive
but I'm
lines.
saying he's going to split hella carries with Jalen Hurts.
Yes, that's his point.
And
You're right, but also he
Yeah.
has another weapon that's taking away from him, which is Jalen Hurts.
Especially running the football.
I think Jalen, from
Yes.
a sustainability standpoint, should run less. Philosophically, they
No,
should
No
Now
matter
we're
what
going-
you
now
think,
we're
it
going-
matters what the
yeah,
coaches
yeah.
think
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
They want him to
That's-
run.
That's a whole.
But just from a health perspective, we see it. We see it happening.
Adam
with fucking-
hates running quarterbacks.
I
bro.
love running quarterbacks. I want one. I want Lamar Jackson on the Miami Dolphins more than anything.
Yeah, but he better not run too much, though, because you want to sustain him for a couple
Sustain
years,
him,
right?
yeah.
You do, because you want your team to win the fucking Super Bowl, and I care about my
Lamar
own
wins
fucking team.
MVP, and he's like, "Yo, Lamar should run less." Like, dude just won fucking MVP. All right, bro.
All right. I feel like we should wrap.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
have one, I have
We're
one
off
extra question.
fumes now.
We
Yeah, go
talked
ahead.
about this.
Last question.
I want to. Oh, I was not talking to my mic. I kind of want to go around and see what we think. We asked Sam that what team we think is going to take the jump. I want to hear what our take is too on like what team do we think is going to make that Bengals Jags jump
Hey, Jack,
this season.
you know what you should do?
What?
You should listen to the Monday episode of Caps Off, February 27th, where we discussed it with
yesterday.
Gio.
Well, I did.
Neither
wasn't
of us were
fucking
here.
here.
Jack was
Neither
sick,
was
You and
Matan
I
was-
weren't here. All
For
right,
the-
I got the thoughts.
Both of
You
y'all
wanna
should
go
give your
first?
teams, but maybe if you want to save that last, what were you gonna say?
We were debating this because it was on Sam's Twitter account, but what's easier to justify? Picking the best quarterback in a class and not having it pan out, or picking the best quarterback available in free agency and not having it pan out, a la Aaron Rodgers?
What's better to justify?
What
I
can
don't
you
really
easily
care.
justify?
Jack,
be
okay, so
honest.
Jack doesn't care.
I would say you
So
could justify a
essentially-
draft pick because you don't know who
Yes,
they are.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I was about to say that. The draft pick.
But that's
Like Zach
Yeah.
Wilson. Everyone thought Zach Wilson was going to pan out. He doesn't pan out. That's like not.
It's fine.
on
It's a
the
bad
Jets.
draft
That's-
pick.
Yeah, it's a
Bad.
bad draft pick. It's just like
Took a swing, which
he took a
other
swing
teams
on
were
a
going to
good,
do
on
it
a
too.
guy who like was obviously the best prospect to take for them. Like he one of, so like
if you take a
I
swing on
think it's
Aaron Rodgers
more
and you
easy
miss on that.
Now
like,
it's super Jetsy for their top draft pick prospect to not pan out.
Two
but
overall.
yeah, I think the draft pick is
would
easier
it be
to
more
justify.
Jetsy for Aaron Rodgers not to pan out if they got him?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna be
That'd be
super
way more
Jetsy when
Jetsy.
that happens.
No, you want to talk super Jetsies. They wait for Aaron Rodgers. That doesn't work out. They try and get Derek Carr, but Derek Carr goes and signs with the
then you
Saints.
trade
No,
up.
yeah,
They
more
trade up
Jetsys,
to
they
draft
get
Will
no
Levis.
one.
They get no
They
one.
get no one.
They're stuck.
They have to
No, you
start
could,
Zach
you, can
Wilson
still,
again.
you can still sign a Jimmy G. That's not a bad option.
Yeah, but I'm saying Jimmy G goes somewhere else
Oh,
too.
like all those guys. Are
Everyone
gone?
goes elsewhere because they
hilarious.
just
Oh, then
waited
the-
for Aaron Rodgers.
Jets are feeling pressed. Like fuck,
The
boys.
Jets
What
are
do we
like the
do?
Knicks.
Then they trade us Sauce Gardner for Cooper Rush.
The Jets are like the Knicks.
Good
You
take.
always think they're
Good
going to
take.
get the best player. Zion, KD,
Oh, there's
Kyrie.
all these, yeah.
Never is that going to happen. And if they do,
Donovan Mitchell
the
right
moment they
there.
put on that jersey, they're trash.
Nah,
always how it goes.
Melo was good
was-
for a
Melo
year
was
too.
good.
Oh, but Amari Stoudemire.
Maurice Stoudemire, no, he was an all-star on the Knicks.
fellow man of the
Was he
tribe.
also?
He was
Yeah.
good for a couple years.
He was good. He was good. But the Knicks were
My
nice.
guy Raymond Felton was nasty though.
Oh, legend.
Yeah.
Raymond Felton.
Oh my god.
I liked JR when JR was there.
So, should we give our takes on that since
Okay,
they were
yeah.
discussed yesterday, but it's not on Spotify,
All right,
so we didn't listen to it.
we're-
yet.
for Spotify.
It is this
Yeah.
morning now. It is this morning.
All right,
Wait, what is it? We're
all
talking
right.
who?
We're gonna ask Jack and Matan this, and we could talk about it. But what's the one team that's gonna make the jump this year, similar to that of the Bengals 2 years ago, similar to that of the Jags this year, similar to that of the Eagles this year? So who's that one team you're looking
What
at?
did you guys say first? I'm curious.
I do
So
want to hear what you said.
You don't gotta
didn't
have
hear
a
my
huge
question?
explanation,
no,
but
I heard the question. I want to hear what you said.
I said the Cleveland Browns.
okay. And
Interesting.
I said the Bears.
ooh, I like the Bears.
To also
one.
clarify what he said,
I'm
he said the
Chicago the
Bears.
fuck up today.
He said he
Yeah.
thinks the Bears in 2024, but
I
he
think
wouldn't be
2024
shocked
is
if
their
they do it
year.
right.
Yeah, I think 2024 is the Bears' year to really take that leap. But if they're able to get the proper help in free agency right now and adjust and hit the right pieces in the draft too, then I think you could get more immediate success than you think.
I got to look at the teams.
I
need to
got.
just- need to
I
just
got what
think
I've been
through.
thinking about for a little bit. It's the Houston Texans.
Ooh.
I think if you go out there and you
What?
get your guy like a Bryce Young or something at quarterback, you have some pieces coming around them that's decent. Their defense is, I'm telling you, is going to be fucking awesome this year. They had an
D'Amico
underrated
Ryans.
top 20 defense last year. They're going to
Top
add
20?
more.
Top 20?
Yes,
They're
they were
30.
really, really good.
There are 30 teams.
32, but
Yeah, okay. It's not great.
But I'm
Keep
saying,
going. still
No,
bottom half.
hold on.
Still bottom half. Keep going.
you have like a top 15 to 20 defense in
Okay.
football. I don't know. I don't know the fucking ranks off the top of my head. But you add D'Amico Ryans, who's the best defensive coordinator in football, to that. They're going to sign. There's like a couple of Niners free agents that are like very, very good players, I think, that are going to go there. They're going to have I guarantee you next year they will have a top 10 defense in football.
I can see it.
You're going to have Mechie is going to come back for the Texans next year, which is a great added wide receiver. John Mechie was a beast at Alabama.
Yeah, he never played in the league.
You have Damian Pierce, who's a very, very good running back, and you're going to get your Bryce Young, who's a stud at quarterback. I think if you do all those things together, they could make a push for a wild card spot.
I can see it. I don't think it's as ridiculous as we think.
you
Yeah, Adam's
blind?
laughing out of his fucking ass
Because
right
the Houston
now.
Texans were the 30th ranked defense last year. What the fuck are you talking about?
no.
You think,
In what? In
you
what?
think D'Amico Ryans, just because he's a great
were
defensive
30th
coordinator with
ranked according
49ers
to what?
amazing pieces, that he's going to come out and just
according to
play
yards.
every position on defense?
Are you talking
Can you
yards?
answer his question?
Because the offense was fucking horrible for the Texans last year.
But it also
it's
kind of
all
helps his
relative.
point. Because
Yards
his whole,
per game?
the whole
Yeah,
argument,
yes, but
it also kind of helps his
defense
point because
ranks.
the whole argument is who he thinks is going to take a lead.
Last in rushing yards per game.
Great. You're, again, I think just proving his point further.
Yeah, 'cause
He's
they're gonna
saying
improve
who
a
he thinks is
ton.
going to improve. They were bottom. Now he thinks they're going to improve.
I don't
The
think they're
question
gonna
wasn't
make-
about who's improving. The
I don't
question
think
is
they're gonna
who's going to
make
make the
this-
playoffs and potentially make a Super Bowl run.
You did not say
Well,
that.
the
What do you mean?
That
I
is-
said
that
the
is Jets.
Bengals.
Who is
I said
going
the
to-
Eagles and potentially of
I
the
said
Jags.
I
of this year.
think the Texans could make the
Who
playoffs.
is that will make a jump similar to those teams? Yes, it's who's
A
gonna
jump
improve.
if you go
A
from the
jump is
worst,
improved.
you go from the worst team in football to potentially making the playoffs. That's that kind
The
of jump.
Bengals were terrible.
The
a
Jags
couple years
also
ago.
didn't
Then
make
they
a Super
made
Bowl run
push
this year.
Yeah, they
for the
won
playoffs.
one playoff
The Jags
game.
were terrible a couple years ago.
The Jags were terrible, but they had one of the best QB
I'm just
prospects
saying.
of the last 10
And Bryce
years.
Young could be that.
Could.
Yes.
Trevor Lawrence was not a could. It would.
What did Sam just say? He said if he was 6'2",
He's not 6'2".
Jesus fuck, shut up.
Yeah,
that was
he
so.
said
Why are
if-
you so angry
if.
right now?
He's just not
if.
6'2".
Whatever.
just because
He's
you
a
don't
great
agree with my
prospect.
opinion doesn't
Yes.
mean you get so angry.
I just don't. I'm just trying to. I'm just trying to figure out why. Like you're saying the Houston Texans, but the Houston Texans didn't have a good defense at all last year. They have so
And
many
now they have
good holes.
D'Amico Ryans,
He's
who makes something out of nothing. The Niners had 8 fucking starters injured last year on defense for a few games, and they still maintained being one of the best defenses in all of football. If you think D'Amico Ryans can't pick up the scraps and shit with the Texans and make them one of the top defenses in football,
okay. You can go
you're
from
crazy.
30 to 14, 15.
I think top 10, easy top 10 defense next
I
year.
don't think it's easy at
I mean,
all.
if there's you said 14, 7 playoff teams on each conference, 14 makes the playoffs. So that's
Hey, good take.
that's his point.
Yeah, I think they can make the playoffs. Like, and if Bryce Young plays well and we can see those flashes of him being the guy, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
Like,
All right,
I think
I'll
they
give
go
my
and
take
get.
now.
Give your take.
I agree with Sam. I think the Jags could win like 13 games next season.
Jesus
I think they're going to
Christ,
take a huge leap. They have
They're playing in a horrible division.
Trevor Lawrence took obviously
Not Texans.
Yeah, the Texans are going to
That's
be a
true.
problem.
The Texans are going to be the second best team, bro.
Trevor Lawrence obviously took major leaps. Careful now.
Why did that get so close?
Trevor Lawrence obviously took major leaps last season. He's going to take another. What is this? Year 3 now. He's only
Calvin
played 2
Ridley.
years.
Yeah, 3.
got
oh
Calvin
my God,
Ridley.
people forget, bro.
Christian Kirk, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to take a huge leap this season. I think they're going to win 12, 13 games and make a huge push in the playoffs.
That's
Just
good.
the second half of last season was such a momentum swing for them. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to actually show up to be the
Well, I
guy
think-
that he's been projected to be.
Jack also
More
makes
so
a
than
good
he already
point, which
was.
is their division. Their division sucks. Besides the
That
Texans,
helps.
of course.
That helps.
No, if the Colts go out and draft Anthony Richardson,
I
they're
knew
winning the
that was
Super Bowl.
coming.
They're winning the
boy.
Super Bowl.
I knew that was coming. Oh,
The Titans
man.
do blow though. I don't know if the Titans can save
I
themselves.
like the Browns, dude.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, Deshaun's fucking sick.
We got into a whole debate with
Like, mentally.
with Gio
Yeah, also.
with Gio about it because Gio thinks Deshaun Watson is absolute, and I quote, washed.
Why?
Washed.
Because he couldn't learn
what's
an
he in year
offense in
5?
5 weeks.
Well, yeah,
After not
yeah.
playing for 2 years,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
27
that
years
He
was
old.
hasn't seen
washed.
NFL defenses for years. Yeah, of course he's going to have some struggles when he comes back.
I think the Browns are actually in a great position though. Offensive line, good defense.
their defense was shit
They-
last year. What are you talking
But they're
about?
pieces. They have pieces.
I'll put that right back on you.
He said his
You want to
shit.
bring up rankings?
Yeah.
fucking
He
rankings?
said his shit.
You want to bring up fucking rankings?
Look up points per game allowed. They let up a
This podcast?
ton of
Cleveland
points.
fifth. They gave up they were 5.
5 what?
For what?
Least amount of passing yards per game.
Okay.
Why are you like switching the boundaries? With him, you're talking about rushing yards. Now you're talking about passing. Okay, what's the overall defense?
I had to click on it.
Looks like you're doing a lot of scrolling.
He's
Well,
like,
it's
he
a
cherry
weird-
picks the
Oh, look,
stats.
he's scrolling down.
No, I'm trying to show you that it's a weird interface
guys.
here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Me and
10,
Matan are
11,
just
12.
watching this
They were
rivalry.
14.
So they were mid.
Yeah, that's better
You
than
just said
the
they had a
Houston
great
Texans.
defense?
No, what I'm saying is the Cleveland Browns have pieces on defense. They have a
he
Denzel
started
Ward.
with
They have a
5th.
Myles Garrett.
Name one other defensive player.
That's 2 pieces at key positions. Who do the Houston Texans have?
D'Amico Ryans.
Right, I forgot he plays linebacker and he also plays
he
corner.
plays
Play
He
with
plays
Brian
defensive.
Cushing and J.J. Watt.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Good
He's
Texans.
a coach. Can only
Yeah.
do so much. You need pieces.
Hey, guys,
Cleveland
we
Browns
got to
have
wrap it
pieces.
up, though.
We do
but
need to wrap,
thanks
bro.
for listening to the Caps Off podcast.
I think Jack and I are going to go hash it out in the
Yeah,
back.
don't
Y'all gotta
don't
take
forget
care
to
of
Bobber
follow.
doesn't want these hands.
Don't
bro.
forget to follow
I
our
don't.
socials at Caps Off Pod on Instagram, at Caps Off Podcast on TikTok.
Bingo. Didn't forget that.
Yeah, damn right.
I fucked that
did
one
it. I guess that's it. Subscribe to our YouTube. Join our Discord. Links in bio. Go to thegameday.com for betting needs.
And stuff.
Yo,
Yeah.
shout out
Nice.
the listeners, man.
And also
Yeah.
shout out to Sam again.
And shout out Sam.
Shout out to
Great
Sam.
guest, bro.
Legend. All right, we'll see you next time.
See
Peace.
ya.
Who are some of your player comps this year? Let us know in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, and to check out all of Sam's stuff, head over to PFF_Sam on Twitter. He's one of the lead NFL analysts at PFF. So shout out to him for coming on and check out his socials.